Have you ever noticed how much of your peace depends on other people? A single compliment can brighten your entire day, while one careless comment can leave you questioning your worth. Someone replies to your message immediately, and you feel valued. They remain silent for a few hours, and suddenly your mind begins creating stories that may not even be true. Without realizing it, we often hand the key to our happiness to people who never ask to hold it. This habit is so common that most of us never question it. From childhood, we are taught to seek approval. We learn that good behavior earns praise, high grades earn admiration, and success earns respect. Little by little, our minds begin connecting our value with the opinions of others. Instead of asking whether we are living according to our own wisdom, we begin asking whether everyone else accepts us. At first, this seems harmless. Human beings naturally long for connection. We are not meant to live without love, kindness, or companionship. The Buddha never suggested that we isolate ourselves from the world. Compassion, friendship, and community are beautiful parts of life. The problem begins when our inner peace depends entirely upon them. There is a profound difference between loving others and needing them in order to feel complete. Many people spend years believing they are searching for love when they are actually searching for validation. They hope another person will remove every insecurity, heal every old wound, and fill every empty place within their hearts. For a while, this expectation may seem to work. A new relationship brings excitement, comfort, and hope. But as time passes, fear quietly enters. The fear of being rejected, the fear of being abandoned, the fear that one day the person who makes us feel whole may no longer be there. The more our happiness depends on someone else, the more fragile that happiness becomes. The Buddha understood this truth deeply. He taught that attachment is one of the greatest causes of suffering, not because love is wrong, but because attachment quietly transforms love into dependence. Instead of appreciating another person, we begin expecting them to carry the responsibility for our emotional well-being. We ask them to provide certainty in a world that has never promised permanence. Imagine leaning your entire body against a tree. As long as the tree stands, you feel safe. But if the tree begins to move, you immediately lose your balance because you never learned to stand on your own feet. Emotional dependence works in much the same way. When another person's attention, approval, or affection becomes the foundation of our happiness, every change in that relationship begins to shake our inner world. Think about how often your mood changes because of something another person says or does. Perhaps someone forgets to return your call. Maybe a friend seems distant for a few days. A coworker offers criticism. Someone you admire fails to notice your effort. None of these situations define your worth, yet the mind immediately begins searching for meaning. It asks whether you have done something wrong. It wonders whether you are no longer important. Before long, your peace has disappeared, not because reality has changed dramatically, but because your happiness was resting in someone else's hands. Modern life makes this dependence even stronger. Social media has created a world where approval can be measured in numbers. A photograph receives many likes, and we feel confident. It receives little attention, and we begin doubting ourselves. We compare our lives with carefully edited images of strangers, forgetting that every person hides struggles the camera never sees. Without realizing it, we allow invisible opinions to shape our sense of identity. The Buddha invited us to step away from this endless search for external validation. He asked a simple but powerful question. If your value depends on the changing opinions of others, how can you ever experience lasting peace? People's thoughts change from one day to the next. Someone may praise you today and criticize you tomorrow. If your self-worth rises and falls with every opinion you hear, your heart will never find stable ground. True strength begins when you understand that your worth does not increase because someone admires you, nor does it decrease because someone misunderstands you. Your value has never depended upon applause. It has always existed beneath it. Consider the sun hidden behind thick clouds. On a stormy day, it may seem as though the sunlight has disappeared, yet the sun itself has not changed. It continues shining above the clouds, whether anyone can see it or not. Your inner worth is very much the same. It does not vanish because someone fails to appreciate you. It does not become greater because someone praises you. It simply is. This realization changes the way you move through life. You still welcome love, friendship, and kindness, but you no longer depend upon them to know who you are. You appreciate people without asking them to complete you. You accept encouragement without becoming addicted to approval. You receive criticism without allowing it to define your identity. This kind of freedom is quiet, but it is incredibly powerful. It allows you to remain kind without becoming desperate, generous without expecting recognition, and compassionate without sacrificing your own peace. You begin living from the inside out instead of from the outside in. Most people spend their lives asking whether they are enough for others. Buddhist wisdom gently encourages a different question. Are you learning to become enough for yourself? The answer to that question marks the beginning of genuine inner strength, a strength that no rejection, disappointment, or changing circumstance can ever take away. And once this truth begins to settle into the heart, another realization naturally follows. If our dependence on others has been quietly shaping our lives for so long, where did this habit begin, and how can we finally free ourselves from it? Have you ever wondered why the opinions of other people can affect us so deeply? Why does one compliment make us feel confident, while one criticism can stay in our minds for days? The answer is not because we are weak. It is because, from the very beginning of life, we were taught to look outside ourselves for our sense of worth. As children, we naturally depended on the adults around us. Their encouragement helped us grow, and their acceptance made us feel safe. Over time, however, many of us unknowingly carried this pattern into adulthood. We stopped depending on others for survival, but we continued depending on them for emotional security. Instead of asking ourselves whether we were living with honesty and kindness, we began asking whether other people approved of us. Without realizing it, our happiness slowly became connected to something we could never fully control: the opinions of others. The Buddha understood this pattern long before modern psychology gave it a name. He observed that the human mind constantly creates an image of itself and then spends enormous energy trying to protect that image. We want to be seen as successful, intelligent, attractive, capable, or important. There is nothing wrong with developing these qualities, but suffering begins when we believe our value depends upon maintaining them. The moment we become attached to an identity, fear quietly follows. We fear failure because it threatens our image. We fear rejection because it challenges our sense of worth. We fear criticism because we mistake someone else's opinion for the truth about who we are. Little by little, our lives become less about living authentically and more about managing how we appear in the eyes of others. Modern life has made this habit even stronger. Every day we are surrounded by opportunities to compare ourselves with people we barely know. We see carefully edited photographs, impressive achievements, and moments of happiness that reveal only a small part of someone else's life. The mind immediately begins comparing. Someone seems more successful. Someone appears happier. Someone looks more confident. Although nothing about our own lives has changed, we suddenly begin feeling that we are somehow falling behind. This is one of the quiet traps of comparison. It convinces us that our value is measured by where we stand in relation to everyone else. The Buddha taught that comparison is another form of attachment, because it ties our peace to conditions that are always changing. As long as we continue measuring ourselves against others, our happiness will remain unstable. Imagine standing before a perfectly clear lake, high in the mountains. When the water is still, it reflects the sky with remarkable clarity. But if stones are thrown into the lake one after another, the reflection becomes distorted. Our minds are much like that lake. Every comparison, every fear of rejection, and every desperate search for approval creates another ripple across its surface. Eventually, we stop seeing ourselves clearly. Instead of recognizing our own unique path, we see only distorted reflections shaped by the expectations of family, friends, co-workers, and society. We become so busy trying to become the person everyone admires that we slowly forget the person we truly are. The beautiful message of Buddhist wisdom is that this habit is not permanent. The need for approval is something we have learned, which means it can also be unlearned. The first step is not to criticize yourself for seeking validation. The first step is simply to notice it with compassion. Observe how often you look for reassurance before trusting your own judgment. Notice how quickly your mood changes because of another person's words. Pay attention to the moments when you feel disappointed simply because someone failed to recognize your effort. These observations are not signs of failure. They are signs that awareness is beginning to grow. Every time you recognize these patterns without judging yourself, they become a little weaker. True freedom begins when your sense of worth comes from within rather than from the changing opinions of the world. Instead of asking whether everyone accepts you, you begin asking whether you are living according to your deepest values. Are you acting with kindness? Are you speaking honestly? Are you treating yourself and others with compassion? These are the questions that gradually replace the endless search for approval. As this shift takes place, something remarkable begins to happen. The praise of others becomes a gift rather than a necessity, and criticism becomes an opportunity to learn instead of a threat to your identity. Quietly, almost without noticing, you begin standing on your own feet instead of leaning on the expectations of everyone around you. From that place of inner stability, the strength the Buddha spoke of no longer feels like an impossible ideal. It becomes a living reality that grows stronger with every mindful step you take. One of the greatest misunderstandings about inner strength is the belief that becoming independent means no longer caring about other people. Some imagine that the Buddha's teachings encourage us to become emotionally distant, to avoid relationships, or to stop loving altogether. But nothing could be further from the truth. Buddhism has always placed compassion and loving kindness at the center of its path. The Buddha never taught people to close their hearts. He taught them to free their hearts from attachment. There is a profound difference between loving someone and depending on them for your happiness. Love allows another person to be exactly who they are. Dependence quietly asks them to become responsible for our emotional well-being. Love gives freedom, while dependence creates fear. Understanding this difference is one of the most important steps toward discovering true inner strength. Think about a healthy tree growing in the middle of a peaceful forest. Its roots reach deep into the earth, drawing nourishment from the soil beneath it. Because its foundation is strong, the tree can offer shade to travelers, shelter to birds, and beauty to everyone who passes by. It gives generously, yet it does not depend on any single branch or leaf to remain alive. Even when the seasons change and some leaves fall away, the tree continues standing because its strength comes from its roots, not from what hangs upon its branches. The human heart can become like that tree. When our inner peace is rooted within ourselves, we are able to love deeply without living in constant fear of loss. We appreciate the people who walk beside us, but we do not lose ourselves if life eventually leads them down another path. Many relationships become painful not because love has disappeared, but because fear quietly takes its place. We begin worrying about being abandoned, misunderstood, or replaced. We seek constant reassurance because we no longer trust our own worth. Instead of enjoying the present moment with the people we love, we become preoccupied with protecting the relationship from imaginary futures. Ironically, the tighter we hold on, the more fragile the relationship often becomes, just as trying to hold water too tightly causes it to slip through our fingers. Trying to control another person's thoughts or feelings often pushes them further away. The Buddha understood that attachment is born from the illusion that we can possess what has always been changing. Every person has their own journey, their own thoughts, and their own karma. Love flourishes when we respect that freedom instead of resisting it. Imagine holding a small bird that has chosen to rest in your hands. If you keep your hands open, the bird may stay peacefully for a while. If it eventually flies away, you can still be grateful for the moment you shared. But if fear tells you to close your hands tightly so the bird can never leave, you risk harming the very thing you wanted to protect. Relationships often follow the same quiet truth. When love is guided by trust, it creates closeness. When love is ruled by fear, it slowly becomes possession. This is why the Buddha encouraged compassion rather than attachment. Compassion wishes for another person's happiness, even when it does not directly benefit us. Attachment, on the other hand, often asks what we can receive in return. This understanding also changes the way we see loneliness. Many people fear being alone because they mistake solitude for emptiness. They believe that if no one is beside them, something must be missing. Yet Buddhist wisdom teaches that a person who is at peace with themselves is never truly alone. Solitude becomes an opportunity to listen to the mind, to cultivate gratitude, and to deepen self-awareness. It is in these quiet moments that we discover whether our happiness depends on constant company or whether it already exists within our own hearts. Someone who cannot enjoy their own presence will often expect others to fill that silence, while someone who has learned to appreciate solitude brings calmness rather than neediness into every relationship. When you no longer depend on others to prove your worth, something beautiful begins to happen. You stop loving from fear and start loving from abundance. You no longer need constant validation because your confidence is no longer borrowed from someone else's opinion. You celebrate the people in your life without trying to control them. You forgive more easily because your peace is not tied to being right. Most importantly, you discover that real strength has never meant standing alone against the world. It means standing firmly within yourself while keeping your heart open to others. That quiet balance is where freedom begins, and once you experience it, you realize that the strongest relationships are not built on dependence, but on two people who have already learned how to stand peacefully on their own. There comes a moment in every person's life when they discover that the world cannot always give them the answers they are searching for. Friends may misunderstand them. Loved ones may leave. People they trusted may disappoint them. Even those with the best intentions cannot always provide the comfort or certainty they hope to receive. At first, this realization feels painful because the mind has spent so many years believing that peace depends upon the people around us. Yet according to Buddhist wisdom, this moment of disappointment can also become the beginning of genuine freedom. Sometimes life removes the things we have been leaning on, not to punish us, but to teach us how to stand on our own. The Buddha often reminded his followers that everything in the external world is impermanent. Relationships change, circumstances change, and even our own thoughts change from one moment to the next. If we build our inner peace upon things that are constantly changing, our peace will change with them. This is why so many people feel emotionally exhausted. Their happiness rises whenever life goes according to plan and disappears the moment something unexpected happens. They are not lacking strength. They have simply placed the foundation of their strength in a place that cannot remain stable. Imagine building a house upon soft sand. At first, everything appears secure. The walls stand tall, the roof offers shelter, and the house seems perfectly safe. But when heavy rain arrives, the ground beneath it begins to shift. Cracks appear, and the entire structure becomes unstable. Now imagine another house built upon solid stone. The same storm arrives, the same wind blows, and the same rain falls. Yet the foundation remains firm because it was built upon something that does not easily move. The Buddha encouraged us to build our lives upon that kind of foundation, not upon praise, success, or approval, but upon wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness. These qualities remain with us even when everything else changes. Many people believe strength means never feeling pain. They imagine that strong people never cry, never feel lonely, and never experience disappointment. But the Buddha offered a much deeper understanding. Real strength is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to experience every emotion without becoming controlled by it. A strong person may still feel sadness when a relationship ends, but sadness does not define who they are. They may experience failure, but failure does not convince them that they have no value. They may hear criticism, but they no longer allow another person's opinion to determine their worth. This kind of strength develops slowly through awareness. Every time you choose not to react immediately to anger, your mind becomes a little steadier. Every time you forgive instead of holding on to resentment, your heart becomes a little lighter. Every time you trust your own values instead of chasing someone else's approval, your confidence grows a little deeper. These small moments may seem insignificant, yet together they shape an unshakable inner foundation. True strength is rarely built through dramatic events. More often, it is created through countless quiet choices made every single day. Think of a bamboo forest after a powerful storm. Massive trees may snap beneath the force of the wind because they resist every movement. Bamboo bends with the wind instead of fighting against it. When the storm finally passes, the bamboo stands tall once again. The Buddha admired this kind of flexibility because it reflects the nature of wisdom. Strength is not stubbornness. Strength is the ability to adapt without losing yourself. It is remaining kind in a world that sometimes feels unkind. It is remaining honest when dishonesty seems easier. It is remaining peaceful even when life refuses to follow your plans. As you continue walking this path, you begin noticing that fewer things disturb your peace. You no longer feel the need to explain yourself to everyone. You stop trying to convince people who have already decided not to understand you. You learn that silence often carries more wisdom than endless arguments. Instead of exhausting yourself by seeking acceptance from every person you meet, you quietly accept yourself. That single change transforms every relationship in your life because you are no longer asking others to provide what only your own heart can truly give. The most remarkable part of this journey is that nothing external needs to change before your life begins changing. You do not need a different job, a different relationship, or a different home to experience greater peace. The transformation begins within. As your mind becomes calmer, the world itself begins to look different. Challenges become lessons instead of punishments. Solitude becomes peaceful instead of lonely. Even uncertainty loses much of its power because you trust your ability to face whatever comes next. This is the strength the Buddha wanted us to discover. It cannot be bought with money, earned through status, or taken away by rejection. It remains with you during success and failure, during praise and criticism, during joyful seasons and difficult ones alike. And once you begin building your life upon that quiet foundation, you realize that true freedom has never depended on how many people stand beside you. It has always depended on whether you have learned to stand peacefully within yourself. One of the most liberating moments in life arrives when you no longer wake up wondering who will make you feel worthy today. For many years, we unconsciously believe that confidence comes from being appreciated, respected, or needed by others. We work harder for recognition, speak more carefully to avoid criticism, and sometimes even hide our true personality simply to be accepted. At first, these sacrifices seem small. We tell ourselves that we are simply trying to get along with people, but over time, we begin losing something far more valuable than approval. We begin losing ourselves. The Buddha taught that suffering often begins when we forget our own nature while trying to become everything everyone else expects us to be. Learning to be enough for yourself does not mean believing that you are perfect. Buddhism has never encouraged pride or arrogance. Instead, it teaches quiet acceptance. It is the ability to look honestly at your strengths and weaknesses without allowing either one to define your value. A peaceful mind understands that every person is still learning. Every mistake becomes an opportunity to grow rather than a reason for self-hatred. When you stop demanding perfection from yourself, you naturally stop demanding perfection from others as well. Compassion begins where unrealistic expectations come to an end. Many people confuse self-acceptance with giving up. They worry that if they stop criticizing themselves, they will stop improving. Yet the opposite is often true. Imagine trying to help a small plant grow by shouting at it every day because it is not tall enough. No matter how loudly you complain, the plant will never grow faster. It needs sunlight, water, patience, and time. The human heart is no different. It grows through kindness, wisdom, and gentle discipline, not through endless self-judgment. The Buddha understood that a mind constantly attacking itself has very little energy left for genuine transformation. Take a moment to think about the way you speak to yourself. If a close friend made the same mistake you made yesterday, would you speak to them with the same harsh words you use toward yourself? Probably not. You would remind them that everyone makes mistakes. You would encourage them to keep moving forward. You would see their failure as one small moment rather than the definition of their entire life. Buddhist wisdom invites us to offer ourselves that same compassion, not because we deserve special treatment, but because healing cannot grow in a place where there is only condemnation. As self-acceptance deepens, another quiet change begins to take place. You stop chasing relationships out of fear of being alone. Instead, you choose relationships that are built upon mutual respect, honesty, and kindness. You no longer stay where you are constantly disrespected simply because you fear losing someone. You understand that being alone with a peaceful mind is far healthier than remaining in the company of people who continually disturb your peace. This is not selfishness. It is wisdom. The Buddha repeatedly encouraged people to choose environments that support mindfulness and compassion rather than those that strengthen attachment and suffering. There is an old Buddhist saying that reminds us, "You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection." These words do not encourage vanity. They remind us that we cannot offer genuine peace to others while remaining at war with ourselves. A person who constantly seeks validation often gives love in the hope of receiving something back. A person who has learned to value themselves gives love freely because it flows from abundance rather than emptiness. That is why inner strength transforms every relationship. It replaces neediness with generosity and fear with trust. Imagine carrying a lantern through a dark forest at night. If the flame depends on someone else holding it for you, every time they walk away, you are left in darkness. But if you learn how to carry your own light, you can still appreciate those who walk beside you without fearing every moment they step away. This is the kind of strength the Buddha wanted us to discover, a quiet light that continues shining regardless of changing circumstances. It does not isolate us from others. Instead, it allows us to meet them with a full heart rather than an empty one. As you continue this journey, you may notice that your priorities slowly begin to change. Instead of asking whether everyone likes you, you ask whether you are living honestly. Instead of worrying about impressing others, you focus on becoming a kinder, calmer, and wiser person. The opinions of others no longer disappear completely, but they lose the power to control your peace. You recognize that some people will misunderstand you no matter how sincerely you live. Others may judge you based on their own fears or expectations. That is simply part of being human. Your responsibility is not to control their opinions. Your responsibility is to care for your own heart with wisdom. When this realization finally settles within you, life becomes surprisingly simple. You continue loving people deeply, but you no longer abandon yourself to keep them close. You continue helping others, but you no longer believe your worth depends on being needed. And with each passing day, you discover that the strongest person in the room is often the one who no longer needs anyone else's approval to quietly know their own value. One of the quietest forms of suffering is expecting other people to become who we want them to be. We may never say these expectations out loud, but they live quietly inside the mind. We hope someone will always understand us without explanation. We expect people to appreciate every sacrifice we make. We believe those who love us should never disappoint us. When reality unfolds differently, frustration begins to grow. We feel hurt, rejected, or betrayed because life refuses to follow the story we created in our minds. The Buddha understood that much of this pain is not caused by other people themselves. It is caused by our attachment to how we believe they should behave. Every person carries a different life experience. They have their own fears, dreams, habits, and struggles that we may never fully understand. Just as you cannot see the entire mountain while standing on one side of it, you cannot fully see another person's heart from your own perspective alone. Yet the mind often assumes that everyone should think, feel, and respond exactly as we would. When they do not, disappointment follows. Buddhist wisdom invites us to replace expectation with understanding. This does not mean accepting harmful behavior or allowing ourselves to be mistreated. It means recognizing that we cannot control another person's thoughts any more than we can control the wind. Imagine holding a handful of sand on the beach. If you leave your hand open, the sand rests peacefully in your palm, but the tighter you squeeze, the more quickly it slips through your fingers. Relationships often work the same way. The more we try to control another person's emotions, decisions, or affection, the more tension we create. Genuine love does not grow through control. It grows through trust, respect, and freedom. The Buddha taught that attachment always says, "Stay because I need you." Compassion gently says, "May you be happy wherever your path leads." That single difference transforms the entire relationship. This lesson becomes especially important when people disappoint us. No matter how kind or wise someone may be, they will eventually make mistakes. They may forget promises, misunderstand our intentions, or fail to meet our expectations. If we expect perfection from imperfect human beings, we will spend much of our lives feeling hurt. But when we accept that everyone is still learning, forgiveness becomes much easier. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that nothing happened. It means choosing not to carry the weight of resentment long after the moment has passed. The person who benefits most from forgiveness is often the one doing the forgiving, because the heart becomes lighter with every burden it releases. The Buddha often compared anger to holding a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. Before it ever reaches the other person, it burns the hand holding it. Resentment works in much the same way. We replay old conversations, imagine different outcomes, and silently carry pain from events that happened years ago. Meanwhile, life continues moving forward. Every moment spent holding on is a moment that cannot be fully lived. Letting go is not about saying that what happened was acceptable. It is about refusing to let yesterday continue stealing today's peace. There is another beautiful freedom that appears when you no longer need everyone to understand you. For many years, people exhaust themselves trying to explain every decision they make. They seek approval from family, friends, co-workers, and even strangers. Yet no matter how carefully you explain your heart, There will always be someone who sees life through a different lens. The Buddha never encouraged people to chase universal approval because he understood it was impossible. Instead, he encouraged them to live with integrity. When your actions are guided by wisdom and compassion, you no longer need endless validation. Some people will understand you, others will not. Both are part of life, and neither changes your true worth. As this understanding deepens, relationships begin to feel remarkably different. You listen more and judge less. You appreciate people for who they are instead of who you wish they would become. You stop trying to rescue everyone because you recognize that every person must walk their own path. Compassion replaces control, patience replaces frustration, and acceptance replaces constant disappointment. Ironically, this is often when relationships become healthier because people feel free to be authentic rather than pressured to meet impossible expectations. True strength is not measured by how many people remain in your life. It is measured by the peace you continue carrying regardless of who comes or goes. Some people will stay beside you for many years. Others will appear only briefly before continuing their own journey. Each person has something to teach you, and each goodbye carries its own lesson. When you stop clinging to every relationship and start appreciating each one for the time it naturally lasts, the heart becomes lighter. You discover that love does not require possession, kindness does not require attachment, and inner peace does not depend upon anyone else's choices. From that quiet place of freedom, you are finally ready to understand the greatest strength. The Buddha wanted every person to discover the strength that has been within you all along. As we reach the end of this journey, we return to the question that quietly guided us from the beginning. What is true strength? The world often gives us one answer. It tells us that strength comes from power, influence, wealth, or the ability to control circumstances. It praises those who always appear confident, successful, and admired. Yet beneath that appearance, many people are still searching for something they cannot find. They continue seeking approval, fearing rejection, and depending on others to feel complete. The Buddha offered a very different understanding. He taught that true strength begins the moment your peace no longer depends on anything outside yourself. This does not mean closing your heart to the world. It does not mean refusing love or pushing people away. Real strength is not emotional distance. It is emotional freedom. It is the ability to love deeply without losing yourself. It is the ability to care without becoming controlled by fear. It is standing firmly in your own values even when others misunderstand you. When your happiness is rooted within, you stop asking the world to constantly reassure you that you are enough. You already know it. Think about the mountains that have stood quietly for thousands of years. Through every season they remain where they are. Storms come and go. Snow falls during winter and melts with spring. Strong winds strike their cliffs, yet the mountains do not chase the clouds or resist the changing weather. They simply remain grounded in their own nature. The Buddha encouraged us to cultivate this same quiet stability. Life will continue changing. People will enter your life and leave it. Some dreams will come true, while others will fade away. But when your heart is rooted in wisdom, instead of attachment, those changes no longer have the power to destroy your inner peace. Perhaps there was a time when you believed someone else would finally make you feel complete. Perhaps you waited for the perfect relationship, the perfect career, or the perfect opportunity before allowing yourself to feel happy. Looking back now, you may realize that every achievement brought only temporary satisfaction. The search always continued because the mind was looking in the wrong direction. The happiness you wanted could never be permanently found in changing circumstances. It could only be discovered within the awareness that quietly witnessed every changing circumstance. This realization changes the way you walk through life. You no longer measure your worth by the number of people who approve of you. You no longer feel the need to explain every decision or defend every choice. Some people will understand your path, while others may never understand it at all. That is no longer your burden to carry. Your responsibility is simply to live with honesty, kindness, and mindfulness. When your actions reflect those values, your heart naturally becomes lighter because it is no longer divided between who you are and who you think you should be. There will still be days when loneliness visits you. There will still be moments when criticism hurts or disappointment leaves its mark. Buddhist wisdom does not promise a life without pain. It offers something far more valuable. It teaches that pain does not have to become suffering. A peaceful mind allows every emotion to arrive, remain for a while, and gently pass away. You no longer cling to joy out of fear that it will disappear, and you no longer resist sadness as though it will last forever. Like clouds moving across an open sky, every experience changes. The sky itself remains untouched. Your true nature is like that sky, vast, peaceful, and always present beneath whatever weather passes through. Imagine meeting your younger self, the version of you who spent so much time worrying about being accepted by everyone. What would you say? Perhaps you would gently smile and tell them that they were enough all along, that they never needed to earn their worth through endless achievement or constant approval, that the strength they searched for in other people had always been quietly waiting inside their own heart. Sometimes the greatest act of compassion is offering yourself the understanding you spent years hoping to receive from someone else. As you leave this reflection, carry one simple truth with you. The people in your life are gifts, not foundations. Appreciate them, love them, learn from them, walk beside them while your paths are together. But never forget that your peace belongs within you. The moment you stop placing your happiness into the hands of others, you reclaim a freedom that no rejection can steal, no criticism can weaken, and no changing circumstance can take away. True strength is not becoming someone who needs no one. True strength is becoming someone who no longer needs another person to prove their value. From that place, love becomes purer, relationships become healthier, and life becomes lighter. You stop chasing approval and begin living with quiet confidence. You stop fearing loneliness because you have become a friend to yourself. You stop searching for the missing piece because you finally understand that nothing essential was ever missing. If these Buddhist teachings have brought a little more peace to your heart today, consider subscribing and joining us again for another journey into timeless wisdom. Until next time, may you walk with courage, live with mindfulness, and remember that the strongest person is not the one who is never alone, but the one who has learned to find peace within themselves wherever they are.